Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're stepping right into the high-stakes, highly encrypted world of Zcash. Look, whether you're a long-time, hardcore privacy advocate, or you're just trying to figure out exactly where digital finance is heading these days, you are in the exact right place. We're going to unpack one of the absolute most intense periods of technical, regulatory, and governance stress that any blockchain has ever faced.
So I really want you to keep this somewhat provocative question in the back of your mind as we go through this today. Can financial privacy actually survive in an era of intense regulatory crackdowns? It's no secret that digital privacy is facing a literal existential threat right now. It's totally caught between the old-school cypherpunk ideal of absolute anonymity and the incredibly strict demands of global compliance. It's basically a massive pressure cooker, and Zcash? Well, it's been sitting right there at the boiling point.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The privacy paradox, 2. How Zcash actually works, 3. Surviving the regulatory crackdown, 4. A new era of governance, 5. The dark ledger crisis, and finally 6. The future of privacy. Starting off with Section 1, the privacy paradox, transparency versus privacy. To really grasp what's going on, we have to start by understanding the fundamental tension between public transparency and the very real human need for financial confidentiality. To see what makes Zcash special, we have to contrast it with BitCoin. BitCoin is all about radical transparency, right? It's a public ledger. Every sender, every recipient, every single amount is permanently visible to the whole world. But here's the problem with that. If a Bitcoin is involved in something illicit, well, its public history travels right along with it. It essentially becomes tainted, which really damages its fungibility. Zcash totally flips the script on this. It solves the problem by offering optional privacy, and it does this powered by zero-knowledge proofs. This essentially encrypts that transaction history entirely, meaning every single token remains functionally identical to the next.
Moving on to Section 2, how Zcash actually works. Inside the math.
To understand how this network survives the crazy stress tests it's been through, we absolutely have to look at the math beneath the hood. The magic word here is zk-SNARKs. Now, I know that sounds incredibly intimidating, but just think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to get into a club, and you need to prove to the bouncer that you're over 21, but you absolutely refuse to show them your ID, your birth date, or even your name. A zero-knowledge proof is a cryptographic method that lets you mathematically prove the statement, "I am over 21" is 100% true, without giving up a single piece of that underlying personal data. It's actually genius.
And what makes Zcash so unique is that it isn't strictly private by default. It actually gives users these 4 distinct transaction pathways. So you can do a transparent T2T transfer, which is just like using Bitcoin. You can choose to shield your money by moving it from a public address to a private Z address. You can de-shield it back to the public, or you can go all the way and do a fully shielded Z2Z transfer. This is the absolute highest state of privacy on the network, fully encrypting the sender, the receiver, and the amount.
All right, Section 3, surviving the regulatory crackdown, navigating global rules.
So the huge question is, how on earth does a network with fully shielded pathways operate when governments worldwide are aggressively closing in on privacy? The global regulatory headwinds have been fierce and honestly highly divergent. Over in the EU, the new MiCA framework aggressively targets anonymous crypto asset accounts. No wiggle room there. In India, the Financial Intelligence Unit directly ordered exchanges to just delist Zcash entirely back in late 2025. But then, contrast that with the US. In January 2026, the SEC actually closed a massive 2-year investigation into the Zcash Foundation without taking any enforcement action whatsoever.
Now, what's really fascinating is exactly how Zcash manages to stay compliant in places like the US. It's a feature called selective disclosure. By using these things called view keys, a user can grant an auditor, or say a tax authority or an exchange, read-only access to their encrypted transaction history. It's a brilliant compromise. It gives those big institutions the compliance and the auditability they're demanding, but without giving them the power to spend your funds, and crucially, without exposing your data to the general public.
Which brings us to Section 4, a new era of governance, decentralizing power.
While they were busy fending off external regulators, Zcash was simultaneously hit by a massive internal stress test that literally tore its core team apart. Late 2025 was incredibly dramatic. Basically, the Electric Coin Company, or ECC, which was the core developer team, their leadership wanted to spin out Zcash's flagship wallet, called Sashi, into a venture-backed, for-profit startup. They wanted to raise capital and just build faster. But ECC's nonprofit parent organization, Bootstrap, completely blocked the move over legal and tax concerns. The result? A mass resignation. The entire core engineering team, about 25 top contributors, just walked out. And by January 2026, they had launched their own independent company called CashZ.
So, with the core corporate structure totally fractured, the community had to step up to keep things running and decentralize the funding. They pushed through Network Upgrade 6.1, which established the strictly retroactive grants process. Instead of paying dev teams up front and just hoping they deliver on their promises, this new model requires a public proposal, a rigorous review, a direct vote by the coin holders themselves, and then, and only then, funds are distributed to the teams for work they have already fully completed.
And the absolute crucial point in all this is this specific number, 420,000 zk. That represents roughly 2% of the total circulating supply. To prevent any kind of governance manipulation by whales, the community instituted this rigorous voting threshold. A proposal only gets funded if at least 420,000 zk actively participates in the vote. It completely puts absolute power back into the hands of the actual network participants.
Okay, Section 5. The Dark Ledger Crisis. The Orchard Bug.
Governance was fixed, the regulators were somewhat managed, but then came the absolute highest stakes moment yet. A terrifying technical stress test in June 2026. And things moved unbelievably fast here. On May 29th, security researcher Taylor Hornby, using an AI model called Claude Opus 4.8, uncovered a critical vulnerability in the cryptographic circuit of the Orchard pool. It was an under-constrained circuit that theoretically allowed an attacker to mint infinite, totally undetectable counterfeit Zcash. It's literally the worst-case scenario. The development teams immediately executed a massive 48-hour emergency response. On June 2nd, a soft fork completely froze the Orchard pool, and the very next day, June 3rd, a hard fork patched the bug permanently.
But this crisis introduced a truly terrifying paradox for the network. Seriously, ask yourself this. How do you definitively prove an attacker didn't secretly mint millions of counterfeit coins if the entire ledger is completely encrypted and completely invisible by design? The answer is this brilliant on-chain safety mechanism called turnstile accounting. Just think of a literal turnstile at a subway station. Zcash tracks the exact amount of transparent funds moving into an encrypted pool and the exact amount moving out. While the network can't see what happens inside the pool itself, the consensus rules strictly enforce that more money simply cannot leave the pool than originally entered it. Forensics quickly confirmed that no unauthorized value breached the turnstile during the vulnerability, mathematically proving that the overall circulating supply was absolutely safe.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how the market reacted to this wild roller coaster. Look at May. When the SEC dropped its probe, the price squeezed right past $400. By June 4th, it hit a cycle peak of $623. But the very next day, when that Orchard bug was disclosed to the public, a massive panic sell-off wiped out 50% of the value. However, as turnstile accounting actually proved the supply was intact, the market absorbed the network's rapid technical response as a huge net positive, driving a gradual recovery back up into the high 400s by late June.
Finally, Section 6. The Future of Privacy. The NU7 Upgrade.
So, after surviving regulatory bans, a core team walkout, and a potentially catastrophic bug, how does the Zcash network evolve from here? Well, first off, the protocol relies on programmatic scarcity. Just like Bitcoin, Zcash sticks to a very strict halving schedule. Despite all the intense chaos of 2025 and 2026, the network's emission rate continues to aggressively tighten. We're currently sitting in the 1.56 ZEC reward era, and looking ahead to November 2028, that inflation rate is going to be slashed in half all over again. On the tech side, the network is gearing up for Network Upgrade 7. And this is huge. They are officially ripping out the old legacy C++ code and moving entirely to a memory-safe, Rust-based consensus client called Zebra. Even more exciting, NU7 plans to introduce Zcash shielded assets. This means developers will actually be able to issue custom tokens, think stablecoins or real-world assets, directly inside Zcash's encrypted pools. Plus, they're already laying the groundwork for post-quantum cryptographic security to protect the network from next-generation supercomputers. Which really leaves us with this final thought. Zcash has proven that through view keys and turnstile accounting, you can actually blend heavy, hardcore cryptography with real-world practical accountability. But in an age of basically total digital surveillance, can an audited dark ledger truly become the backbone of our financial future?
It's a massive question, but honestly, the survival of Zcash suggests we might just be getting a lot closer to an answer. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.